I'm sure most of you are aware of the recent television special that claimed to give an honest, candid, and revealing look into the private life of one of the world's most successful and controversial celebrities, Michael Jackson. The revelations were explosive. The ratings were enormous. But Michael has claimed that what TV journalist Martin Bashir presented was a twisted and edited construction of scandal and innuendo, not a true representation of the interviews that actually took place. In the next 2 hours, we're going to give you an opportunity unprecedented in the history of television. We're going to show you footage that was never intended to be broadcast.
Tonight, the private video from Michael's own cameras. Cameras that shot the Michael Jackson interview. The footage you were never meant to see.
Without a doubt, one of the most controversial topics of Michael Jackson's life is his relationship with children. The scandals and rumors surrounding allegations made against Jackson are the subject of seemingly endless speculation. As we told you before, Michael Jackson has no editorial control over the content of this program. What you see and hear is intended to be an unbiased presentation that allows you to draw your own conclusions.
Some years ago, you yourself were about to embark on a tour, and allegations were made about you and children. What about 1993? What happened? What was Michael Jackson doing?
Because they don't know me. They don't know me. All that was false. Complete innocent guy. I would never do that. I would slit my wrist before I would hurt you.
He would never hurt a child. Never. It's not in him. No way. He would never do anything inappropriate with a child. It's the furthest thing from his mind. When those allegations came, 93, I think it was devastated. I mean, talk about going for the jugular.
And the more popular I became, the more rumors that were created, none of which were true. I mean, the moment I started breaking the all-time records of the biggest selling albums of all time, they called me weird overnight, strange, wacko, they said I'm a girl, homosexual, he wants to buy the Elephant Man bones, he sleeps in a hyperbaric chamber. None of that stuff is true. They really go too far. They simply go too far.
Does it hurt?
Does it hurt? I'm human. I am human.
They say he's homosexual.
We're getting crazier and crazier when it comes to coverage of celebrities. You know, one of these young actresses gets stopped for drunk driving, and it's on the cable stations for the next couple of months. There are far more important things going on in our criminal justice system than this. But that's where the media feels that it'll get its ratings, and that's where it feels that its profits will come from.
What hurts you most?
When they lie. The lies. They're complete lies. And it hurts. And it hurts me because I know there's children out there who has to hear that crap.
Why do people do that when all you have done is brought some of the most beautiful music, most beautiful popular music that many of us have ever heard? Why do people want to judge you if all you've done is been an artist and brought wonderful music?
Because with success, people become jealous. It hurts to be misunderstood. No matter how much you try to put people on track, there will still be some judgment. Things said that it's so far.
Following the broadcast of Mr. Bashir's special, the speculation about what went on in Jackson's private life was once again headline news, primarily due to the story of Gavin, a young man who had reportedly been dying of cancer.
Gavin was somebody who was diagnosed with cancer. Doctors gave him, I think, 3 weeks or 1 month to live.
One of his last wishes was to meet Michael, a request fulfilled through Los Angeles businessman Jamie Masada.
Then he said to me, under his breath, he said, I want to meet Michael Jackson.
Gavin and his family formed an immediate bond with Jackson, creating an atmosphere that many believe played a large part in Gavin's recovery.
2.5 years ago, the doctor, they said 2 more weeks he's dead. Now he's alive.
His appearance on the Bashir special showed a seemingly healthy and happy young man, clearly very fond of Jackson. And while Mr. Bashir did touch on Gavin's amazing recovery, many believe that the real focus was on Michael's relationship with the young man, especially the revelation that they had spent the night in the same room. Since Mr. Bashir's documentary aired, Gavin and his mother have gone into seclusion after being bombarded by requests for interviews from tabloids around the world. This statement released to the press by Gavin's mother says, "I'm appalled at the way in which my son has been exploited by Martin Bashir. The relationship that Michael has with my 3 children is a beautiful, loving, father, sons, and daughter one. To my children and me, Michael is a part of our family. In addition, she is considering action against Mr. Bashir for including Gavin in his special without parental consent."
I didn't really know how you behave with the people who come to the ranch and come to your home. I hadn't seen it. And you were the most generous person. But I looked around here yesterday, and some of the people really appreciated it. But others were greedy. Others couldn't help themselves. Do you sometimes despair of human nature?
Yes.
One of the basic qualities of respected journalism is objectivity. Now, as you may have heard in several recent news stories, one of Michael Jackson's prime complaints about the reporting featured in Martin Bashir's documentary and subsequent interviews with the press was his lack of objectivity. As we've already seen, some of Mr. Bashir's comments that made the air appear to be quite different than opinions he expressed in Jackson's behind-the-scenes footage. About Michael's ranch, Mr. Bashir's on-air comment was, "One of the most disturbing things is the fact that a lot of disadvantaged children go to Neverland. It's a dangerous place for a vulnerable child to be." But what he said behind the scenes was this.
I was here yesterday and I saw it, and it's nothing short of a spiritually kind thing.
This comment about Michael's method of raising children was included on Bashir's special. "They are restricted. They are overly protected. I was angry at the way his children were made to suffer." But this was not.
Your relationship with your children is spectacular. And in fact, it almost makes me weep when I see you with them. That was great. Thank you. That was really, really special.
It seems to me that through history, people, they really want to make someone big, and they want to be, oh, this person is so talented, and we've got to make them godlike, and they have to be perfect. And then as soon as they're there, they get more joy in tearing someone down.
Eventually, when you talk and you say it like it really is, you just light up. That's what. It's about bringing out what you're about.
That whole special was, it was just an attempt to tear him apart, and he trusted Martin Bashir. They took this thing back to the studio, and they took a lot of things out, and the way this thing was narrated, it was just not fair.
Why have you and I spent the last never hearing that? Why have I never?
You tell me. I'm always continuously.
They want to make you out to be crazy.
And then slowly he started bringing his own opinion into the picture. As a reporter, as a news, I like to see the truth, then I'll decide what my take would be on it.
Aren't that being honest, Turtle? You know me long enough.
Yeah.
I'm being completely
No, it's
honest.
not just you though. You can see that.
Bashirs will come and go, you know? Michael will live forever in everybody's hearts.
Why? Just spoken to him and allowed him to speak.
But we do feel it's appropriate to leave you with one more piece of information. Mr. Bashir is quoted as saying, "Michael Jackson is a marvelous father to his own children, and I never saw anything that would qualify as a criminal activity." This comes from an interview dated just a few days ago. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Maury Povich. Good night.
Do you sometimes despair of human nature?
Yes. Yes, of course.
I mean, can you ever do anything that's right?
No. No matter what you do, there's always somebody that will say something about it. They're opinionated, you know? No matter what you do. No matter how good your intentions are, there's always some jerk, some mean-spirited person to try to bring you down. And all you wanted to do is bring some love and some joy, and, you know, that's all.
More than 60 investigators searched Jackson's Neverland Ranch for 14 hours yesterday. Jackson's lawyer says a 12-year-old boy claims he was molested there. Today, the local district attorney seemed almost gleeful as he spoke to the media. He tried to prosecute Jackson for molestation 10 years ago.
If Michael Jackson's watching this right now, what's your message to him? Get over here and get checked in. We would encourage him to turn himself in and cooperate with law enforcement.
The service of the warrant was part of an ongoing investigation alleging criminal misconduct on the part of Michael Jackson. The basis for this investigation regarding Mr. Jackson involves allegations of child molestation, 288A of the California Penal Code. Additionally, an arrest warrant for Mr. Jackson has been issued on multiple counts of child molestation. The bail amount on the warrant has been set at $3 million. At this point in time, Mr. Jackson's been given an opportunity to surrender himself to the custody of the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department within a specified period of time. We are currently working with Mr. Jackson's legal representation on this matter.
Late today, a Jackson spokesperson called the allegations false and malicious, saying, quote, Michael would never harm a child in any way, and promised the singer would put this nightmare behind him. Vince Gonzalez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Pop star Michael Jackson surrendered today to authorities in California, where he faces charges of child molestation. Shortly after he was fingerprinted and photographed, the singer released a statement saying, "Lies run sprints, but the truth runs marathons. The truth will win this marathon in court."
And we will stand up. And everybody that knows this family around the world will support us, because at the end of the day, this is nothing but a modern-day lynching. This is what they want to see. Him in handcuffs. You got it. But it won't be for long. I promise you.
At 12:05 today, Michael Jackson was taken into custody at the Santa Barbara airport.
I can tell you right now, categorically, that based upon this complaint that has been filed, that Michael Jackson is unequivocally and absolutely innocent of these charges. I can also tell you that contrary to what was said during that press conference, that the defense does know what the prosecution thinks they have in this case. I can also tell you that beyond any shadow of a doubt, I know that the investigators, or so-called investigators, do not know what we know.
How are you doing today?
Michael Jackson not only will not flee, Michael Jackson is here, ensconced, ready to fight. He is strong, he is defiant, as well he should be, because he knows, and I know, that these charges are completely and wholly unfounded. He's not running, he's not hiding, he came back immediately when informed about these charges, and he is as irate as I am and everybody else who knows anything about the history of these accusers. Anybody who knows anything about the history of the investigators and the axes they have to grind knows that these charges not only are categorically untrue, but they're driven by two things, money and revenge. And we will prove that. Thank you very much.
Not to be involved in that, I made it clear at the time I thought that would be a conflict of interest. And if they require legal counsel, that counsel will either talk about the facts of the case, the testimony of the evidence, the victims' identity.
We've filed formal charges, the felony criminal complaint against Mr. Jackson.
The felony complaint involves 9 counts. 7 counts of 288A in violation of California Penal Code, commonly known as child molestation, and 2 counts in violation of Penal Code Section 222 that involves administering an intoxicating liquor to a child for the purpose of committing a felony. Those are the 9 counts. In addition to that, there are several special allegations that have been alleged, some of which all of which the jury will have before them, and the findings could make Mr. Jackson ineligible for probation and could substantially affect the amount of time that he could spend incarcerated if the findings are found true.
But what about that leaked document from the Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services, which virtually cleared Jackson of abusing the same boy last February?
To call that an investigation is a misnomer. It was an interview. Plain and simple, and that's all it was, and we're not concerned about it in terms of any impact on our case.
When Gavin got stage 4 cancer and it appeared to be terminal, Gavin made a dying wish to meet Michael Jackson, and through entertainment industry channels, Michael was contacted. Jackson regularly opened his home up to sick kids like Gavin and responded by arranging to bring Gavin and his family to Neverland. Jackson often said that he created Neverland Ranch modeled after Peter Pan's Never Never Land, as a place where underprivileged and ailing kids could escape their everyday problems, just like they might at Disneyland. Michael had great concern for Gavin and hoped that he would help him overcome his cancer through positive thinking and experiences.
I remember one time he taught me how to drive in the little carts, and so we were driving up the hill, and he told me that I need to get better, and I was like, I will. He told me, listen, I need you to get better. You are going to get better. He told me, I need you to eat up all the little cancer cells just like Pac-Man. Go around eating like Pac-Man. And I never forgot that.
To cancer, he lost his left kidney, his left adrenal, his spleen. They extracted multiple lymph nodes, a 16-pound tumor, and it went to stage 4 terminal cancer in both his lungs. And when I would tell him, the doctors are saying there's no chance, Michael said, I will not have that. You bring him to me, and we will coat him with love. And not only did he extend love to him, but to Star, Davelin, and me. A complete
Conspiring to take advantage of Michael and his generosity. Janet Arvizo felt they deserved the special treatment they got at Neverland because of their disadvantaged background. Here's another clip from the rebuttal video, which was an aborted effort to support Michael.
Where were they when I couldn't feed my children, when I had to share a box of cereal? Where were they when my children and I would weep? Where were they when my children and I were lonely? Where were they when I didn't have enough money to pay for my bus fare, to get my son to the doctors? Where were they when I had to walk about 3 hours to get to the doctors for my children? And now all of a sudden they're caring and concerned because Michael Jackson is involved, the very same man who cares about me and my 3 kids, to make sure that their past is erased and that all they can count is a future full of happiness, joy, and safety. Where are those people when I needed him, when I needed them? And now Michael is there for us, there for all 3 of them.
family began to come up with these allegations of molestation and conspiracy only when they realized that they were on the way out, that Michael Jackson was sick of them, didn't want to deal with them anymore, didn't want them on his property.
It was at this point that the Arvizos consulted Larry Feldman, the same attorney that won the reported $20 million settlement from Michael Jackson to young Jordy Chandler in 1993. The Arvizos met with the attorney, Larry Feldman, who earns a percentage of whatever his clients make. He sent them to the same psychologist he used for the Jordy Chandler case, and shortly thereafter, the psychologist and Feldman reported to the Santa Barbara District Attorney's Office that Gavin Arvizo claimed Michael Jackson had molested him on multiple occasions. It just so happens that the Santa Barbara District Attorney, Thomas Sneddon, had been hoping for years to find somebody to level child molestation charges against Michael Jackson. Here's Sneddon at the Neverland Sheriff's Raid.
I'll just stay here. I just want to find out these here.
Messero was asked if he thought Sneddon had a vendetta against Jackson.
Do I personally think he had a vendetta against him? I absolutely do. Why else would you devote all that time and energy to trying to convict one person? And one thing you didn't mention was that there was a website at the Sheriff's Department looking for any information on Michael Jackson, along with the trips overseas, along with 3 grand juries, 2 in Santa Barbara, 1 in Los Angeles. And this went on for, year after year after year. And the best they came up with was this case, which was shot full of holes.
It probably didn't help matters much that Michael followed up the... Were the sheriffs looking for the truth? Or, as some said, were their investigations just one-sided?
He's the bad person, not you. Okay? Your mom, you, your brother, and your sister are good people. And you're helping by coming here and talking to us. I want to re-emphasize to you that you guys are doing the right thing and you're going to help a lot of people.
In a sense, the district attorney's office became the Arvizos' new enablers.
You watch that video and you realize this man has jumped to a conclusion without any investigation at all. That itself showed bias on the part of law enforcement. I think if you also looked at his demeanor, you didn't see someone who was nervous or shy or upset about what he claimed had happened to him. We also proved this young man had gone to acting school, had taken acting lessons, that he wanted to be an actor and a comedian and a celebrity. And there were so many things that were disturbing about that tape.
When the Arvizos believed they had some success with their stories, they became even more bold with their accusations. They claimed Michael Jackson held them captive at Neverland. However, during the time they were supposedly held captive, Janet Arvizo took regular trips on Michael's tab to local beauty salons for full body waxes and other amenities.
What she should have probably done, let's call the police. There's all these phones in the area. We could go have access to any phone we want and call somebody to come and get us, call the Sheriff's Department. But instead she goes to Solvang, gets her legs waxed, and the kids are running all over the place, wrecking the vehicles that they were borrowing, just to drive around in.
The Arvizos also had Michael's driver chauffeur them around in Michael's Rolls Royce as they went on shopping trips and traveled back and forth between their East LA home and Neverland. Still, Janet Arvizo claimed that they considered escaping from Neverland in a hot air balloon.
They wouldn't let us leave.
Were you scared when you were there?
Yeah.
What were you scared about?
That they might kill us.
The Arvizos claimed that they were not only held prisoner, but they were also prevented from knowing the time. This too was hard to believe with the abundance of clocks on the premises that can be seen in this footage in my Neverland tour video. Finally, the cottage where the Arvizos resided while they were at Neverland would hardly be characterized as a dungeon. In fact, the family was staying in the most lavish guest cottage on the estate, the same one used by Liz Taylor and Marlon Brando, and the one Michael himself used after the raid of his bedroom, when he vowed he wouldn't go back into the bedroom since the sheriffs had defiled it.
Their room, a room that Marlon Brando had stayed in, a room that Elizabeth Taylor had stayed in, they defaced that, they tore it up, they wrecked the place.
In the last few weeks, a large amount of ugly, malicious information has been released into the media about me. Apparently, this information was leaked through transcripts in a grand jury proceeding, where neither my lawyers nor I ever appeared. The information is disgusting and false. Years ago, I allowed a family to visit and spend some time at Neverland. Neverland is my home. I allowed this family into my home because they told me their son was ill with cancer and needed my help. Through the years, I have helped thousands of children who are ill or in distress. These events have caused a nightmare for my family, my children, and me. I never intend to place myself in so vulnerable a position ever again. I love my community, and I have great faith in our justice system. Please keep an open mind and let me have my day in court. I deserve a fair trial like every other American citizen. I will be acquitted and vindicated when the truth is told. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson has been repeatedly advised by those who stood to make fortunes in his business affairs to pay money rather than face certain false allegations. As a result, many years ago, he did pay money rather than litigate 2 false allegations that he had harmed children. Mr. Jackson now realizes that the advice he received was wrong. He should have fought these actions to the bitter end and vindicated himself. The recent publicity about these settlements is unfair and damaging to him, his family, and his dedication to the world's children. The charges he faces are false and will be battled in a court of law within our justice system. He is innocent and will be vindicated.
For 2 days, jurors have heard the details of how Michael Jackson allegedly molested a boy at his Neverland Ranch. And now they're getting to hear the boy's story firsthand. Prosecutors have called Jackson's accuser to the stand. He follows the testimony of his 14-year-old brother. Under tough questioning from Jackson's defense attorney, the brother's memories seem to fall apart little by little.
The defense is effectively dismantling this witness on the stand. We're hearing the story change. It's not simply a matter of memory being different, it's the story's different.
The boy told jurors he witnessed Jackson molest his brother 2 times, but today, out of the blue, he said it was 3 times. He was referring back to what he said in an interview with investigators. The boy said he was nervous then, and that's why he made the mistake. The teen also testified he witnessed the molestations from the stairs leading to Jackson's bedroom. But earlier he reportedly told investigators that on the second occasion he was pretending to be asleep on the couch. At that point, the prosecutor stood up and objected, telling the judge he could explain. The prosecutor later suggested to jurors that the boy was on the couch and did witness an incident that Jackson isn't formally charged with. The boy also contradicted testimony from his sister about where in Neverland Jackson allegedly gave them alcohol and what type it was. Now it's up to the accuser himself to bring credibility to his family and make the jury believe his story. Manuel Gallegos, CBS News, Santa Maria.
A number of people called saying they thought it was about the Sony catalog. What's in that catalog?
In my Sony catalog is all the Beatles music, all of, Little Richard's music. I own Sly and the Family Stone. I own such a volume of I own Elvis, so many Elvis songs, and it's a huge catalog. It's very valuable. It's worth a lot of money, and there is a big fight going on right now as we speak about that. Now, I can't say whether or not. I can't comment on it. There's a lot of conspiracy. I'll say there's a lot of conspiracy going on as we speak.
Well, it was suggested by a number of your friends and family members that this fight really is more about this catalog issue than it is anything else. Do you believe that?
Well, I don't want to comment. I don't want to make a comment, Jesse. It's a real delicate issue, and I'll let you make the comment on that one.
Is there anything that you will do differently when this season is over?
Is there anything that I would do differently
when this season is over?
My level of trust will change, and there's a lot of conspiracy going on. I'll say that much. A lot of it.
Do you think
all around me?
Is the conspiracy connected to the celebrity, or to the trial, or to the catalog? What do you think the source of it is?
I can't comment, Jesse. I don't want to, because I'm under gag order, and it's a very, very serious thing. I don't want to say the wrong thing with the wrong flavor.
Well,
it's a very delicate area. That's a very delicate where we are now.
Today, the defense is expected to finish questioning Jackson's young accuser. This after the teen dropped a bombshell Monday, admitting he told a school official that Jackson never touched him. CBS News correspondent Vince Gonzalez reports.
With fans cheering in falsetto, Michael Jackson, who was almost thrown in jail last week, arrived early Monday for his trial on molestation charges. In court, the singer showed no emotion as his young accuser admitted he twice told a dean at his old middle school, Jeffrey Alpert, that Jackson never touched him. The teen said, quote, "I told him that Michael didn't do anything to me." This investigation has been going on for more than 2 years, but the prosecution reportedly first interviewed Alpert only on Saturday, nearly 2 weeks into the trial.
Nothing good came of this day for prosecutors, not a single thing.
Defense attorney Tom Mesereau also went through the boy's school records, pointing to a series of teachers who called him disruptive, defiant, and strong-willed. One teacher even wrote he had good acting skills.
He does not come off as a victim. He comes off as someone who is much more likely to victimize someone else. Everyone knew this was crucial, and the crucial witness comes off very well for the defense and not so well for prosecutors.
Last night, the boy met with District Attorney Tom Sneddon to talk about the statement and the case. Some court observers say that is an unusual move at this point in the trial. In a change of direction, Jackson attorney Tom Mesereau brought up Jay Leno, saying the boy's family contacted the TV host looking for help. But the accuser said he left Leno a voicemail and never talked to him.
If Leno comes into this courtroom and says, in fact, he did have a conversation with the alleged victim, it's going to be pivotal testimony to this particular case.
And in yet another attempt to catch the boy in a lie, the defense pointed out that in an early police interview, the young accuser said his grandmother had told him about a certain type of sexual act, even though he had testified that Jackson had told him about it. Pressed to explain, the boy said both had told him about it, but it was Jackson who did it. Some court observers say it appears the prosecution is losing control of this witness. Jennifer Miller, CBS News, Santa Maria, California.
Prosecutors are now whipping through sheriff's detectives who investigated the case. In comparison, court observers say it's tedious testimony. Bob?
You know, Vince, if whatever Michael Jackson did, if this is the best that the prosecution can do, what we saw today, I think they're going to have a hard time proving this case.
That's the opinion of most observers. It's not over until the jury gets the case, but the defense has done an excellent job of taking prosecution witnesses and making them stars for the defense, and that will likely continue.
Michael Jackson's defense team wrapped up its cross-examination of the accuser by hitting at the heart of its theory. Tom Mesereau asked the boy if he had talked about filing a civil lawsuit if he wins the criminal case. The boy said no.
He said he never talked about wanting to sue. He doesn't want to sue. He hasn't talked about getting money for this.
The prosecution then began its rebuttal, trying to repair damage done during the accuser's intense cross-examination. Monday, the boy admitted he told a school administrator nothing happened between him and Jackson. Today, he told District Attorney Tom Sneddon he had lied about that because he was being made fun of at school as the kid who was, quote, raped by Michael Jackson.
The experts will come in and testify. That's what victims do in cases like this.
Along with establishing inconsistencies in the boy's testimony, the defense is also laying the groundwork for a possible motive. Jackson attorney Tom Mesereau contends that when the boy and his family got upset because Jackson distanced himself from the family, they accused the pop star of molestation.
When the defense was hammering this point home, Michael Jackson sat up straight in his chair and he turned and looked right at the jury to see if they were getting it.
And although the prosecution seemed concerned about yesterday's testimony, it wrapped up today's rebuttal quickly, ready to call a sheriff's detective as its next witness. Jennifer Miller, CBS News, Santa Maria, California.
Now we have, of course, the accuser has been on the stand, and most legal observers, including yourself, have said this has not been helpful to the prosecution. Does the prosecution stand a chance if this testimony is so shaky from the accuser?
I don't know. I don't know where prosecutors go from here. I don't know whether they can prevail and get the convictions that they want against Michael Jackson. Their main witness, the accuser, the alleged victim in the case, the one witness that the jury has to believe for prosecutors to win, just wasn't that believable. He wasn't that credible. He wasn't that likable. He came off as a young man who was very tough and strong and savvy, not the type of young man who would allow himself to be molested. And that's a perception that would be a fair one for the jury to have. And now prosecutors are stuck. The most dramatic part of their case, the highest point of their case, is already passed, and they really haven't sold the jury, and it's not going to get any better from them from here.
So when you have a teenager, though, and I know he couldn't remember some of the dates as far as when the molestation was supposed to have occurred, does the jury give him any leeway, saying he's a kid? How would he remember? There's no leeway there, you don't think?
No, I think there is wiggle room. I think there is some sympathy built into the fact that he is a young man. He's an early teenager, and especially boys are very sullen at that age, and they're not very cooperative, and they can miss things. Don't forget he's a cancer survivor, Melissa, and he went through that whole process. It was obviously very traumatic, physically left him scarred and so forth. So there is a built-in sympathy factor. I guess my point is that apart from that, he did not generate more sympathy, enough sympathy, I think, for the jury to say, you know what, we're going to give this kid a break. Even if he's not sure of all of the facts, we're going to trust him, and we're going to be sympathetic and empathetic to him. I just don't think he made that connection. I think he hurt himself, and I think that's one of the reasons why prosecutors yesterday, when they had a chance on redirect examination to rehabilitate him, to answer some of the questions he had raised by his own testimony, really didn't do it. I think they wanted him off the stand, their own witness, because they figured that all he would do by staying on the stand and continuing to testify would be to further hurt the prosecution's case. I think they tried to cut bait, and I think that tells me a lot also about what they think of their own witness.
Gary Coleman, he's the star of the 70s TV series Different Strokes. He also starred in a run for governor of California, and he's now covering the Michael Jackson trial for All Comedy Radio. Gary, I want to ask you about this concept of having a childhood stolen and how Macaulay Culkin and Michael Jackson share that. But first things first, let's talk about the news of the day. You were there. Talk about the atmosphere around the trial today as Macaulay Culkin went in to testify for his friend Michael Jackson.
And I can certainly tell you, based on last week and this week, it's definitely appearing to me that this is a show trial. It's a revenge trial. Tom Sneddon always said he was going to try and get Michael Jackson one way or another. And it was really proven to me when he didn't redepose his witnesses on the stand when they didn't say what he wanted them to say to get Michael Jackson convicted. That really proved it to me.
Talk about Macaulay Culkin having a special bond with Michael Jackson, because they were, like you, they were both child stars. They both talked about having their childhood stolen. Do you think that Macaulay Culkin would be more likely to stick together with Michael Jackson, or you, others like you, because you all have shared that same experience?
Oh, well, you know, in Hollywood, there's a group of people who actually do participate in that kind of hand-holding kind of atmosphere, a self-help, if you will. It's called a minor consideration. I don't know if Michael Jackson is into that kind of thing, but I certainly understand the kindred spirit aspect of it, except that's not something that I've ever experienced personally myself.
From what we understand, you're out there reporting for All Comedy Radio, is that correct?
I try to poke fun at the fact that Michael Jackson is in court for something that now, obviously, he didn't do. So I try to put a little lighter side on it, and believe me, child molestation allegations, proven or not, is not funny. But I try to be very mindful of that.
While you're on there for a comedy network, you don't think it's funny what's happening to Michael Jackson. You think he's been set up. You think this is a show trial. So I would guess that you think he's going to walk.
Oh, I'm unless, like you just said to Miss London, if something absolutely bizarre, unknown, and devastatingly 180 degrees different happens, he's definitely going to walk.
All of these networks seem to focus in on child stars and take special joy at counting every little mistake that they've made, every sin of omission or commission that they've made. Do you think that may be a part of it with Michael Jackson? Do you think there's a target on Michael Jackson's back, and a lot of people like to see this guy get knocked around?
Well, that's just psychology. There are many people who are jealous and envious of people who have star power or money or fame, and they will look for and try to find any way possible to hurt those people.
Michael Jackson not guilty of child molestation. Michael Jackson not guilty of handing alcohol to a minor. Michael Jackson not guilty on every single count.
And there it is, all 10 counts, not guilty on all 10 counts. Michael Jackson will be walking out of this courtroom a free man. Slam dunk against the prosecution. Jeffrey, too.
Michael Jackson not guilty on all counts.
A Santa Maria jury finds Michael Jackson not guilty on each and every charge he faced. No compromises, no hung jury.
Michael Jackson now officially not guilty.
And 14 times, a total of 14 times for the 10 counts and 4 lesser included offenses, the words not guilty were uttered with.
Michael Jackson is a free man. He is acquitted on every count. Jane Secker.
The end of the nightmare for Michael Jackson.
It was an absolute and complete victory for Michael Jackson. Utter humiliation and defeat for Thomas Sneddon, the district attorney.
Not guilty on all counts.
It is a devastating defeat for the prosecution. In this case, Tom Sneddon and company not guilty on each of the 10 charges.
A free man fully vindicated by this jury in Santa Maria.
And a clear and decisive unanimous win for Michael Jackson.
It was a stunning and comprehensive defeat for Santa Barbara's District Attorney Tom Sneddon.
For Michael Jackson. An innocent man. The $4 million trial is over, and Michael Jackson is free.
This was a unanimous decision, not guilty on every single charge.
141 witnesses, 60 days of testimony, and 32 hours of jury deliberations, and it all boiled down to just 2 words.
Tom Mesereau was Michael Jackson's lead defense attorney. This is his very first interview since the verdict. Tom Mesereau, good morning to you.
Morning, Katie.
Before I get your reaction to the verdict, let me ask you about Michael Jackson. So, according to people who watched him as the verdicts were read, he seemed not to have a reaction, and then he wiped a tear from his eye beneath his glasses. You got a chance to talk with him. What was his reaction?
Well, he's very relieved, and he's also very exhausted. He feels wonderful about his family not having to undergo any more of this. But it's going to be a period of recovery for him because physically he deteriorated, he wasn't sleeping, he wasn't eating well, and it was a terrible ordeal for him.
Emotionally, what is his current state?
I would say that he's going to take it one day at a time. He's going to get some sleep. He's going to be around his family and just start building for the future. But it's been a terrible, terrible process for him.
I know you went to the Neverland Ranch last night. Can you describe what the atmosphere was like, who was there, what was going on?
His family were there. They were all praying to God and thanking God for all his help that he had given them throughout the trial. They were all very grateful. It was not a super jubilant type of thing. It was a very serious, solemn expression of gratitude.
Meanwhile, this is a huge legal accomplishment for you and puts you in a whole new category of trial attorneys in this country. How did you feel emotionally when this verdict was read?
Well, I always thought we'd win the case. I never thought the prosecution had a case at all. They tried to make a lot out of nothing. It didn't succeed. We had a jury of very fair-minded, independent, honorable, courageous people, and I always thought we'd win the case.
Well, tried to make a lot out of nothing. What do you mean by that?
They put on witnesses who were lacking in credibility. They did everything they could to try and hold them up in ways that just didn't make any sense. A lot of their theories and arguments made no sense, and they didn't have a case. And Michael Jackson's innocent.
Was there a key moment in your view, Mr. Mesereau, that really resulted in this non-guilty verdict?
No, I think we clobbered them throughout the trial. I think we cross-examined their witnesses very effectively. I think we destroyed a lot of the theories that they put forth, which were ridiculous. I think our witnesses blew them out even more, and I'm not surprised at the verdict. I'm very grateful to the jury, and I'm very grateful to Judge Melville for running a very orderly and very professional courtroom, but I'm not surprised that we won because we should have won.
What was the most ridiculous theory in your view?
A lot of what they said was ridiculous. I don't know where to begin. This idea that this woman and her family escaped from Neverland 3 times and came back. The idea that Michael Jackson would run a conspiracy to abduct kids and extort and kidnap and do things of that sort. The theory that somehow he would start molesting children at a particular date, which made no sense. There were so many ridiculous aspects to this trial that had to be exposed properly, and I think we did a good job.
But your faith never wavered. You never thought at one point, gee, we may be in trouble here at least on 1 or 2 of the counts?
Well, you're always wondering because you don't know the jurors personally. You don't know what their backgrounds are. You don't know what makes them tick, so you're always worried. But as far as the prosecution's case is concerned, I always thought it was ridiculous. I always thought it was absurd. I thought the way they conducted it was very mean-spirited, and I think they got what they asked for.
It seems that many of the jurors, at least listening to them following the trial, had serious, serious issues with the mother of the accuser. They found that she wasn't credible, and apparently she was just downright annoying. How much do you think her disagreeable demeanor mattered in the course of this trial? Was that absolutely key in your view?
It was very important, but it was not key, in my opinion. I think she was not the only witness that lacked credibility. I think her children, testified and were contradicted repeatedly. I think other witnesses that the prosecution called to bolster their case really fell apart completely. And it wasn't just her at all. I think their case had too many problems with it because it wasn't true.
One juror was quoted as saying, quote, what mother, and in fact we just heard her, what mother in her right mind would allow that to happen, to just freely volunteer your child to sleep with someone? And another said, as a mother, the values and stuff she has taught them and they have learned is hard to comprehend. I mean, how germane is that to the case? I mean, it almost seems as if this mother was on trial.
Well, she certainly was cross-examined for days by me, and I did go after her credibility both in this particular case and in other cases. So she didn't help them at all, but she was not the whole problem with their case. They had multiple problems. The accusers had problems with their testimony, and they had problems with things they had done in the past. I think we did a very good job investigating the background of this family and doing what we had to do.
Some jurors are saying this is rather a not guilty verdict, not an innocent verdict. One juror said he believes Michael Jackson molested other children, just not this one. So is this really the vindication that Michael Jackson's supporters believe it is?
Yes, it is. Macaulay Culkin came and testified he was never touched. Mr. Robson testified he was never touched. Mr. Barnes testified he was never touched. I mean, they tried to promote theories of Mr. Jackson's behavior that just fell apart because they weren't true.
But do you find it troubling, do you find it troubling, though, Mr. Mesereau, that a juror is saying, I believe Michael Jackson molested children or has molested children before?
I don't find it troubling because we won the case and we should have won the case. He's innocent.
Let me ask you about this. Do you believe that this will lead to a change in Michael Jackson's behavior? Have you advised him, Mr. Mesereau, to stop sleeping with young boys, which he has said, quote, is the most loving thing you can do?
Well, he didn't say sleeping with young boys was the most
sharing a bed, sharing a bed, sharing a bed.
Letting people into his room is what he talked about, and he's not going to do that anymore because of the false charges that were brought here. Michael is a very kind-hearted, childlike person. He's been too nice to too many people. He's allowed people to come into his life and run freely through his home, and that's going to change.
And
he's not going to make himself vulnerable to this anymore.
And finally, what does Michael Jackson do now, in your view?
He's going to live a wonderful life because he's a wonderful person with a wonderful family. He's got an unlimited future, and he will do very well.
Well, Tom Mesereau, we so appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much.
Obviously, we're disappointed in the verdict, but we work every day in a system of justice. We believe in the system of justice, and I've been a prosecutor for 37 years, and In 37 years, I've never quarreled with the jury's verdict, and I'm not going to start today.
The jury found him not guilty 14 times.
They knew he was innocent by that time.
Absolutely. I mean,
They knew.
this case was a travesty as far as I'm concerned. An absolute injustice to put Michael Jackson through this horrible, horrible process with evidence like that, in my opinion, was a travesty.
You prosecutors proved to me he was innocent of everything. With your lying witnesses that get caught, your bogus fingerprint evidence, and I started to go into this fingerprint evidence, and to me, nothing sticks in my mind so greatly is that day you put the little pointer pen light laser up on the calendar of the Barely Legal magazine after you had got Gavin at least 7 to 8 times to say, yes, Michael gave me that magazine in the bed, and yes, I'd last been at Neverland and such a month. I forget, it was January, February, or March. And the date on it was October. And you made Gavin read the date. And then you asked him again, now when were you last at Neverland? And you say he gave you this words. Didn't that make a striking impression? I looked at the jury and they were like, the front row was going like rolling their eyes like, oh my God, can we do any? Why is this going on? I mean, the jurors were rolling their eyes. How soon before that did you know? I mean, you must have been laying that trap for him. How soon before the trial started did you know that Tom Sneddon had physically given the magazine, the physical magazine, with no gloves on, and given it to Gavin Arvizo in the grand jury indictment proceeding? How soon before that did you know?
Well, my law firm partner and co-counsel, Susan Yu, she was the one that I worked through all the evidence with. We were the lead counsel in the case. Randy and Michael Jackson asked me to come to Florida, said they wanted Susan Yu and me to defend Michael as lead counsel. And she was the one that I primarily went through all the evidence with. Susan Yu is the most brilliant legal strategist I've ever met in my career. She's a tireless worker, she's brilliant, she's intuitive, and she doesn't leave a stone unturned. So we were going through all of this a number of months before the trial and fastened upon this issue. And it was one of many things, I think, that we revealed in that trial that showed that these witnesses were not telling the truth and were not to be believed.
Tom Sneddon be indicted for falsifying evidence in the Michael Jackson trial. And I was a witness. I was right there in the courtroom, watched him get caught, false fingerprints evidence, the phone evidence that they tried to create to say there was a conspiracy and all these phone charges, half a day on that. Then Sneddon wanted to withdraw it from the evidence pool in the court. No. The defender, Tom Mesereau, said that stays on. Judge said, you're right, it's already been entered, it stays. And the jury looked at all this false evidence and said, there's no way we can convict this guy. We got a pile of crap from Tom Sneddon. What he did to Michael Jackson was so beyond the pale of forgiveness. I have to say, and I know this won't make me popular with Gordy Auchincloss and Ron Zonin and that old bunch of DAs, and certainly not Dudley or Josh Lynn, but I believe Tom Sneddon should be serving time in prison, and that's where he should be getting he'll have lots of money in his prison account getting his pension, but he should be in prison. You cannot falsify evidence and then just say, oh, we lost the case. No. He had that boy put his fingerprints on the magazine at the grand jury, and the reason we know that because the alert Tom Mesereau, the defense attorney, got the grand jury transcript. And one of the grand jurors said, shouldn't that boy be wearing gloves? Then after the grand jury, they sent it out for fingerprints analysis. So where did the boy get his fingerprint on the magazine when the boy testified he hadn't even been at Neverland for months when that magazine was published? Yet he claimed that was the magazine Michael Jackson gave him in bed. And Tom Sneddon directed all that testimony.
At the trial, the Arvizos claimed that they were forced to make this rebuttal video and to say complimentary things about Michael Jackson, and that it was all scripted for them. Many found this difficult to believe, especially after this segment was played.
Wait. You know how Bashir zoomed in on him holding hands, do that the same thing.
Because
because that's what a mother does with a son, or a father does with a son, you know, and they try to make it out to be something wrong and dirty. Put your back straight.
The hand holding thing.
Okay.
How did that make you feel?
Oh, we're on camera?
Yeah.
Oh.
We are?
Yeah, I was rolling. Oh God! This is the outtakes of the outtakes.
After viewing it several times, we felt this isn't scripted.
Well, you know, the jury saw that tape, I believe, 5 times. So they had ample ability to decide whether she looked like she was being coerced and whether everything she said was memorized or scripted. And I think the verdict speaks for itself.
At the trial, it came out that the Arvizos were badgering a number of celebrities for money and attention.
Chris Tucker had interacted with this family on numerous occasions. He felt they took him for a ride. You know, I remember him telling me when I first met him that he was told this child had cancer. He wanted to help them out. He invited them to the set in Las Vegas of Rush Hour 1. He thought they would spend a day, and they ended up spending, I think it was 10 days or 2 weeks, and billing him for the entire amount. And he went to Michael Jackson in Florida and said, "Be careful, something's wrong."
Got a bad feeling about this. I think we should just beat it. Stop worrying and just follow me.
Now, Jay Leno was interviewed by the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department and secretly recorded by the sheriffs. He didn't know he was being recorded. And he told them words to the effect that this family had contacted him, that the 13-year-old accuser had tried repeatedly to get through to him, and that finally he had a conversation with him. He said that the 13-year-old sounded, overly rehearsed, sounded scripted. There seemed to be a woman in the background, directing what he said. And he got a bad feeling about what this young man was saying to him. And he thought they wanted money, although they didn't actually ask for it. And after that conversation, he told the staff not to let them put any calls through to him again, that he didn't have a good feeling about.
We thought, here's another one. They're trying to lure him in and suck him in like they did Michael Jackson.
I felt betrayed by this family. I felt like they had taken someone who had really come to them in their darkest hour and who had really tried to be a friend, who had tried to show them support that they were not getting from their parents or from other family or whoever. And he tried to do so much for them. And they told me that Michael was the one who helped cure this child of cancer, just his love and his support, and that they were able, the same people who were able to say that they were capable of then turning their backs on him and making these just awful allegations for the sake of money or whatever it was just, I just felt really betrayed.
After paying close attention to the trial, I believe Michael was guilty, not of child molestation, but of childlike innocence and bad judgment.
Turning point. What was the turning point for you and you think the world in that trial?
Well, our approach was to be aggressive from the opening bell. Their first witness was Martin Bashir. They thought he was going to be a good witness, and he was a disaster for the prosecution. He refused to answer questions. He hid behind his attorney who was in court. He claimed journalism privilege, and we just kept going. I just kept asking him questions about Michael Jackson, questions like, isn't it true he told you repeatedly he would never hurt a child under any circumstances, and he wouldn't answer the questions? And I would repeat it again and again, and I think it was a disastrous way for them to start their case.
Well, from my perspective, many criminal cases, on paper, clients can look really, really bad. If I'm a prosecutor, I can make anybody look terrible. But the focus for us was to really get to know Michael. That mattered more than the the amount of evidence we had in the case was just way too much to handle. But for us, the focus was to Michael and getting to know him, and quickly we realized there was no doubt that he was innocent.
That's fantastic.
They were wrong, and they were outrageous in going after somebody as innocent as Michael. And one thing I have to say about Michael, and I'll end quickly, is that, quite frankly, no question he was a big name and still is. Superstar, yes. Who's bigger than Michael? No question. Who's more talented and gifted than Michael? Probably nobody. But you know why he was so special? Aside from all that, underneath it all, he was so decent.
Yeah.
And so modest and humble. And a lot of celebrities you come across, they suffer from narcissism. They think they're entitled to everything. Well, there are a lot of people, not just celebrities, but people with money, fame, or perceived money and fame. It's unfortunate people are that way, but you know, I wouldn't be sitting here and talking to you if Michael was a horrible person. Who cares if he was famous and big, if he was a jerk, not a nice person, but he really was a really nice, decent person.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Michael, he was not guilty of these allegations because he never did them. He never dreamed of doing them. The problem is that when you have the media sensationalize a trial through sound bites and innuendo and sensationalism, which is only geared to feather their own profit, not to tell the truth, you have damage that's done, and it's hard to undo it.
We have to cover it, so let's ask about it. What's the relationship that you had with Michael Jackson?
He's a good friend of mine, and he still is. I mean, everything that's going on, I mean, it's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate situation for everyone involved, and, you know...
How did you first get to meet him?
I first met him, he kind of called me randomly, like out of the blue. He was just kind of like, hi, it's Michael. And I was like, hey. And the thing
This was after Home Alone?
This is after Home Alone. I actually had met him before I was doing Nutcracker at Lincoln Center. I was playing Fritz, and he came backstage one day, and I actually met him very briefly. And he kind of recognized me because it was after I'd done Uncle Buck, and so he kind of mentioned something. And then he calls me up kind of out of the blue, and it's kind of just this weird random thing. And he was like, why don't you come over to my house? And
we're off to the field. Super Soakers are really high tech. They got some really great ones now. That's Mac's older brother, Shane. Okay, we're preparing the water balloon fight.
What's the name of our group this time, man?
What are you feeling?
Where were we last time? That was Legions of Doom.
We had teams. We used the whole ranch. My favorite thing in the world to play, if you call it a sport, it's a sport. It's a water balloon fight. 'Cause I like the way they splatter when they hit. I've never lost a water balloon fight. I'm the Michael Jordan of water balloon fighting.
Legions of Doom. Yay. We won the fight again and again.
But Janice, what's it like on the winning team?
If he's gonna get me. Great. This is the face of a person who would do something like that. I'm gonna be innocent. Right?
I mean, I went through this entire water balloon fight.
Victory! Victory!
Completely dry. But knowing Macaulay Culkin, he made sure, he schemed on, he told me to go up on the diving board, and I went up there like a nut.
Ah! No!
I'll kill you! I will kill you, Mac! Mac, I'm going to annihilate. Okay, here we go. A lot of confidence, courage, and belief.
That's my cousin Elijah. Just push me in the pool. That's Levon, my other cousin, in the red.
No!
If I dried off, they pushed me right back in. I can't believe that. First shot of me with no shirt on.
I'm a nice person. I just took a shower and I washed my hair thoroughly.
See what they do to me? Mac is the most reckless driver. Oh my God.
You almost killed them.
It's his brother Kieran on the back.
Did you see that lead? Your foot is ran over.
They're good kids though.
You know you had that like...
This is what he did. Look, he had the camera and he went.
Ah!
Me and my cousin on the trampoline.
That was close to me. This is egg hunt day.
Yeah.
And we're going, how many eggs are there?
45.
How many?
45.
45?
Yeah.
We're looking for 45 eggs.
And there'll be special prizes.
Do we get prizes?
Yeah. Well, I hope
A trip to Bermuda.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
The
a
ones
trip.
with the stickers
Can
are-
we just stop?
A trip to
No,
Walt
let's
Disney
stop
World.
now. Let's
Ready?
stop now.
1, 2, 3, go.
Whoever finds the golden egg gets the biggest prize.
Hello. I have no fortune. Nothing. Please, you know where they get? Would you tell me, please? I want to win this game. Hey!
He reached out to me because a lot of things were happening, like, you know, big and fast with me. And I think, yes, I think he identified with that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's almost easy to try to say, oh, it was like weird or whatever. But it wasn't. It's like one of my friendships that people question only because of the fact that he was the most famous person in the world. He was the kind of person who'd like, yeah, been through the exact same freaking thing and wanted to make sure that like I wasn't alone in that kind of,
Was he fun?
He was awesome. He was hilarious. He was sweet. And like, people didn't know how funny he was. For me, it's so normal and mundane. Like, you know, I know it's a big deal to everyone else, but like for me, it's like, yeah, it was a normal, like, you know, it was a normal friendship.
And the thing is, I didn't react to him the way most people did. Most people like, Michael Jackson. And, you know, I mean, he was a god to people. And to me, he was, you know, I knew he was a pop singer, but beyond that, you know, I wasn't one of the fans. I think that's one of the reasons why we connected, was the fact that, you know, believe me, I call him a jerk all the time. I call him a fathead and this and that, you know, and he
brother
gets
knew
it.
him too?
Yeah, no, we all did. I mean, he was, you know, a family friend.
What
basically.
happened at the house? That's what all these things that people
you know,
are
that's
concerned
what's so
about.
weird, you know.
What did happen?
Nothing happened, you know. I mean, nothing really. I mean, we played video games, you know. We you know, played at his
Sleep in the
amusement
bed?
park. Well, the thing is with that whole thing is that, you know, they go, oh, you slept in the same bedroom as him. It's like, I don't think you understand. Michael Jackson's bedroom is 2 stories. And it has like 3 bathrooms and this and that. So when I slept in his bedroom, yeah, but you have to understand the whole scenario. And the thing is with Michael is that he's not very good at explaining himself, and he never really has been, because he's not a very social person. I mean, you're talking about someone who's been sheltered and sheltering himself also for the last like 30 years, or you know, and so he's not very good at communicating to people and not very good at conveying what he's actually trying to say to you. And so when he says something like that, you know, people, you know, he doesn't quite understand why people react the way that they do.
Why do you think he likes young people so
It's because it's the same reason why he liked me, was the fact that I didn't care who he was. That was the thing. I talked to him like he was a normal human being. And that's what, and kids do that to him, because he's not, I mean, he's Michael Jackson, the pop singer, but he's not the god of, you know, the king of pop or anything like that. He's just, you know, a guy who's actually very kid-like himself and wants to go out there and wants to play video games with you.
Did your
and things
parents
like that.
encourage it?
They weren't against it. You know, it wasn't like they encouraged it or like pushing me upon it. It was just kind of like I wanted to hang out with him, and they were fine with it.
So what do you make of what he's going through now?
Like you know, like I said, it's unfortunate, and you know, it's a circus right now.
You think it's a bad rap?
You know, I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, listen, like, look what happened the first time this happened to him. You know, if someone had done something like that to my kid, I would, you know, I wouldn't just settle for some money. You know, I'd make sure the guy was in jail. You know, and it just really goes to show. I mean, as soon as, you know, they got the money and they ran. I mean, that's really what happened the first time.
There is a systematic effort to destroy every black male entertainer's image. Nobody leaves this business clean. Michael Jackson, fuck little white children.
Michael Jackson was ultimately found innocent, though.
All 3 of the little motherfuckers came on. They're adults now. You can count them on the internet.
Yeah.
Saying it never motherfucking happened. Our parents put us up to try to get
Right.
money out today.
I think one of them.
Did mainstream media ever pick that truth up and
Not
put
so
it out
much.
there?
One of them actually, I think, killed himself at one point. I think. Well, one of the accusers or some shit like that.
Yeah. Because his conscience done fucked him up.
Yeah.
You can't run away from yourself. Everywhere you go, there you are.
Because Jackson was gangster.
You don't make $1 billion being no punk motherfucker.
You were with him a lot, and you know all the controversy that followed him. What was it like watching your friend go through that?
You know, it was, you know, it was horrible, you know what I mean? Because, you know this guy is great. You know, he's got a heart of gold. And you know that he wouldn't do any of those things that people were talking about. Later on, of course, after he died, a few of those people came forward and said, it never happened. We didn't do anything. We was pressured by parents, by this or that, and they needed money real bad, and they figured that was the way to get at him. And there was people out in the press that actually came clean, but it's a little late. Thanks a lot. You put them through hell and. Even in
the Martin Bashir documentary, he was pressuring you to try to divulge if anything had happened to you.
Yeah, they're always trying to put words in my mouth for trying make crazy stuff happen. We just had the best times. He's always been nothing but a great friend, not just to me, to my whole family.
All we know for a fact is that Jordan Chandler, who was the first kid that accused him, came out after his dad died and wrote an open letter and said that those stories were fake. He said it himself in his own words in an open letter. So we know that. We know that the second trial was negated and was proven to be false. He had 10 counts against him, and he was proven innocent on all 10 counts. So why are we even still talking about this?
Is he going to come back to working?
I don't think so, except maybe in Europe.
You don't think he'll ever live in the United States again?
Well, really, why should he? He's been treated like dirt here.
Gary Coleman. Michael Jackson was one of the most famous people on the planet. It turns out he was also the target of intensive FBI scrutiny. Local police were so concerned about the media circus surrounding the 2005 Michael Jackson's child molestation trial, they asked the FBI to assess whether it was a soft target for terrorism. It was just one of the revelations from newly released FBI files that portray the King of Pop as potential criminal and potential victim. We learned today that as early as 1993, there were allegations that Jackson made sexually charged phone calls with a boy in London. And we discovered the FBI was more deeply involved in that highly publicized 2005 sexual abuse trial than we ever knew.
Certainly there's a very high motivation to help when there are potential children victims involved.
James Clemente was one of the FBI agents brought in to assist in the Jackson investigation.
We have the international and interstate capabilities to do investigations that local law enforcement and local DAs don't have. We also have the forensic capabilities.
FBI forensic scientists pored over Jackson's computers looking for evidence of child pornography, and agents helped with interview strategies for a victim who alleged that Jackson abused him in 1993.
And thank you both for joining us. I want to start with you first, Brian. How aware, was Michael aware of the extent of the FBI's investigations?
Not at all, Robin. It was really kind of a surprise when we got these documents. Back in August, I learned that there was an FBI file on Michael Jackson. I made a request under the Freedom of Information Act, and as a result, this is what we have. We have the files coming out. There's some 673 pages, but the FBI has only released 333 pages. So we're kind of curious as to what is in the balance of it. We're surprised and shocked by what we found in what they did release, though.
Have they been talking with you at all? Have you been asking them questions as an attorney for the family?
I spoke to Mr. Jackson, Joe Jackson, last night, and he said that this FBI file was something he never heard of. Why are they investigating his son? They can't do those sorts of things. But as an attorney, I knew that the FBI was significantly involved in some of the aspects of Michael's life. But there are aspects, particularly the pornography aspects, which you had mentioned, that we had no idea that they were involved at all.
Now that these pages, this investigation, all these investigations have been released, what do you want the public to know about it?
Very interesting, Robin. In all of these pages, hundreds of pages, many, many hours of investigation, going to the Philippines, going to Chicago, going all over the country. There's not one scrap of evidence that Michael Jackson ever harmed a child, did anything wrong, committed any crime. It's almost a vindication when you look at this. The FBI looked at all of these matters and said, there's nothing here. And I think that's the most startling thing which I've seen.
But I understand in 2005, you were with him and actually took him to a hospital at one point, correct?
Yes, that's right. That was the last week of the trial. And when I got a call from Joe and a message from his mother that I needed to come out and just take a look at him because they was worried about his demeanor. When I get there, I go to the trial. From there, we go back to Neverland. And he asked me to come upstairs, and he grabbed me and started crying and said, please don't leave me. They're trying to kill me. And I said, when's the last time you ate? He said, no, they'll poison me. I said, well, when's the last time you drank water? And so one thing led to another. So I have a friend of mine that has this huge machine in L.A., Global Cardia Care. I said, if you can bring this machine down, Michael's agreed to get on it. And they clamp you and they squeeze you, and it'll print out everything in your body. And the only thing that it printed out was he was extremely dehydrated. Nothing wrong with his heart, nothing wrong with his lungs. And so the next day after we left court, I said, I need to take you to a hospital. He said, no, they'll kill me. And I said, well, let's do this. Let's let nobody know where we're going. Let me drive you up to San Francisco to a hospital that don't even know we coming. He agreed to that. And then I said, look, 20 miles away from here, let's go to one of these hospitals. And we went to a hospital, and they examined him, and at 5:30, or a little bit before 6, they started intravenously putting liquid in him. At 6 o'clock the next morning, they were still putting water in him. And the doctor said to me, had he waited 12 more hours, he would have been dead.